Hello, my name is John, and today we're in the cockpit of the MiG-21Bis again. In this video I want to show you how to operate the PRMG landing mode together with the SAU autopilot. So let's get started. First things first, we want to set the correct frequencies for our destination airport, in this case Batumi, and the frequency preset is 16, so we'll dial that in for the RSBN and the PRMG. And as you can see, shortly afterwards, those two green lights started to illuminate, which indicates that we can properly receive the frequency, or the frequency we dialed in, and then we can trust it for navigation. You can also hear the audible beep, the Morse code, and we will turn the volume of that down. Okay. Now we have done that, we want to check that this switch here is in the upwards position, which is the RSBN position. And if we wouldn't have it in this position, we would have the problem that we don't get the right data. We would get the ARK data displayed instead of the RSBN data, so we want to have it in the upwards position. Next thing we want to do is basically on this mode switch, the RSBN mode switch, we want to switch to the lower position. And the lower position, as you can see, the indications are changing. The lower position is the PRMG landing position, whereas the middle position is the en route navigation position, and the upper position is the cloud penetration position. Anyway, in the low position we will get the data we need to actually use the SAU autopilot to perform our approach. So let's have a small look at those indicators down here, the KPP and NPP. And what we have here are this up here, this vertical bar up here, is the localizer indication. And what it does, it indicates the deviation to the runway center line in degrees. Basically, if the needle is in the middle, just in the circle here, it means we're directly on the extended center line of the runway. If the needle is towards the left here, maybe halfway here, this means that we are one degree to the right of the center line, and we have to fly to the left. So basically you always have to keep those needles centered, and you want to fly in the direction the needle is away from center, basically. So in this case you would fly slightly to the left to actually get it centered. And this yellow needle here is the very same thing. It's the glide slope this time though, and basically in the middle here we will be on a 4-degree glide slope down towards the runway. If it's higher than that, we are above the glide slope, and if it's lower than that, we are below the glide slope. Every dot here indicates 0.5 degrees deviation. Obviously the indicator will stop once it hits the end up here and up down here. And basically we don't have to worry about setting our runway curves or anything like that, as you would normally do in a Western aircraft, but the PRMG system automatically detects the runway heading or the side you're approaching based on your curves. You have to be within a specific area just in front of the runway. I think it's 25 degrees on both sides of the runway center line for the RSBN system or the PRMG system to actually tune automatically towards that runway and use it for its navigation. And if you don't get any data displayed, it might very well be that you're outside of those 25 degrees to both sides, and therefore the RSBN and PRMG system don't indicate anything here, and those indicators will be flagged. Now on the KPP we have a couple other indications, and mainly the flight director. And you might know the flight director already from using it in the normal navigation mode, but we can also use it in the PRMG landing mode. However, this time though we have to select it down here on the SAU control panel, and if you click on the left button here, which is the PRMG SAU command mode, you can see this yellow needle here, which is one of the two needles displayed. And basically what those needles do, they are like a flight director, and you want to have both of those needles centered in the middle here, and this will basically lead towards you flying these needles centered as well. So basically you want to follow, if you're in the flight director mode, you want to follow this vertical needle here and the horizontal needle that would also pop up if you would continue towards the runway, you want to follow them and have both of them in the middle, and this will actually bring you down the glide slope. And obviously you could also use the raw data for that, but you can also use the flight directory if you so wish, which takes off the workload by quite a bit. And just as an additional note, down here on the NPP we have this horizontal and this vertical bar as well, and those basically indicate in this mode the same as those two yellow bars, the vertical and the horizontal one, and the horizontal one and the vertical one here. So that's just a mirrored representation one more time. Anyway, the mode we want to look at is the RSBN SAU automatic mode, which is activated by this switch here. As you can see, immediately after switching it or pushing it, the joystick basically moved backwards. And what this indicates is the input the autopilot, the SAU autopilot, gives to the aircraft. So basically, as we are below glide slope and a bit to the left, the aircraft or the autopilot wants the aircraft to climb and turn it to the left a bit to actually intercept the glide slope. So basically, it would follow those flight director inputs. And there are a couple of things you want to be aware. Like currently I'm a bit to the left, which is not a problem, but I'm quite far below the glide slope. And as you can see on the stick deflection, we would be pulling quite a lot of G's to actually fly up there, or the autopilot would pull a couple of G's to actually fly up there. So we don't want to do that, obviously, because it's uncomfortable for the pilot and also not very good for the aircraft or external loads. So basically you only want to switch into the approach mode once you have both of these needles more or less centered, else you will get quite a jumpy response from the autopilot. And another very important thing, which is a bit strange, but normally here this red switch on the joystick is the Autopilot Disconnect. Whenever you're in like the recovery mode, you can push this button to disconnect the autopilot. However, with the SAU landing mode, this doesn't work for some reason, and you have to actually push this reset switch down here. And as you can see, as soon as I pushed it, the light went out and the stick centered itself again. But just be aware of that, because whenever the SAU landing mode is activated, you have no authority over the stick, and therefore basically you will have a problem. You will have to push this button down here to disconnect the landing mode to get your stick authority back. And this is very important because the SAU autopilot will fly the approach for you. However, it cannot land for you. It's not an autopilot designed to land the airplane. It's just designed to help you out on the approach. Maybe if you have a busy time or are working on the radio or whatever. And it's not designed to land, so you want to disconnect the autopilot at about 100 meters above ground, which we will have a look at in a couple of seconds. And I will engage the autopilot, the SAU autopilot, after I unpaused, as soon as those needles are in the middle, more or less, and we will watch the aircraft fly down the glide slope towards the runway. So let me unpause. Oh, sorry, the aircraft is going up quite a bit, which is not intended. This was unfortunately because me activating the SAU modes during active pause. I do apologize for that. But anyway, we have the aircraft back in trim more or less right now. So now we, as you can see, as an effect of this bit irrational climb, we have both needles, the glide slope and the localizer centered, so we can safely engage the SAU landing mode, as I did, and you see the aircraft is changing a bit up and down, but this is the SAU landing mode trying to get itself onto the glide slope. So let me just reduce the power a bit, and we will wait for the aircraft to fly downwards the glide slope. As you can see, the nose is pointing a bit to the right. That's a bit normal. It will just do its correction, and you have to remember this technology is very old. Don't expect any spot-on approaches, but you will get to the runway quite nicely. Anyways, I should not be talking so much, but rather extending the landing gear and deploying the first notch of flaps, which I will do now. And you have to be a bit gentle right here. The autopilot can have problems with that, and you can get oscillations. It was improved in the last patch, but it might still happen. And as you can see, we are more or less perfectly on the glide slope. a bit below right now, so the aircraft will pull the nose up, and just be aware you have to work the throttle yourself. The autopilot does not do that for you, and if the autopilot decides it needs to pull up more, you have to increase your throttle, else you will fly, or the autopilot will fly the aircraft into a stall. So be aware of that. And let me extend the second notch of flaps. As you can see, when looking at the approach lights, the PAPI, we're a bit high, but that's just how the SAU or the PRMG landing data adds up. We will end up a bit high on approach. And there's nothing much we can do about that, and we will have to correct that manually once we get closer. And for example, if we would now pop out of the clouds, we would visually identify the runway, and I would go ahead as a pilot disconnect the SAU landing mode by pressing that button down there, which I have mapped to one of my buttons on my throttle, and I would now have to continue manually on the approach. As said, the SAU system does not land the aircraft for you, still have to do that yourself. And let me just bring the aircraft in for landing. Just let me touch down here. That will do. Let me deploy the parachute before we run off the runway. And basically, the SAU system is a great aid for you during bad weather if you need to descend below the cloud. The overcast border, or like descend below the cloud level, and basically you would want to have visual on the runway though at maybe 100 meters or 200 meters preferably, and for you to allow to disconnect the autopilot and line yourself up perfectly with the runway, perform the approach. But the SAU system can be kind of help, especially as said during bad weather. Might not be very useful during perfect weather, because the MiG is okay during approach, I would say personally, but it's okay to fly during the approach, but the system itself is maybe of some help during some situations. And I hope you liked this video. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great day. Bye.